Okay, sneezeweed. Sneezeweed is a annual perennial herb, usually about 1 foot to 3 feet tall. The leaves are very narrow, very thread-like almost. The yellow flowers are very characteristic, and this is the yellow flower that typically is going to show up in the fall of the year rather than in the spring of the year. The spring of the year being buttercup, and the fall of the year these yellow flowers are usually going to be sneezeweed. And there are several in that family, and there are many of these that are found throughout the South. The location that you're in kind of defines what species that you're going to have. So autumn sneezeweed is going to be more common in the Piedmont, the mountains, and on further north. Bitter sneezeweed is more common in the southern Piedmont, kind of here and further south. Autumn sneezeweed is actually more potent and more problematic than bitter sneezeweed, but both of them can cause issues. The toxic principles in this particular case is a glucoside, sesquiterpene, lactone, and a phenol. Very harsh smell to it as well. When you crush the leaves of the plant, you'll have that very strong, pungent odor that will be coming off of it. And these toxins are going to be found in all plant parts. And can even remain in there in the dry plant material, so contaminated hay can be an issue. These, again, are only going to be consumed in most cases when forage supplies are limited. So in drought situations and so forth, that's when this is going to be an issue. All livestock can be affected by this. Sheep, for whatever reason, tend to be more commonly affected by it. Cattle can also be affected, but it usually requires a lot more of the compound to have an issue. And goats, I haven't had any reports of goats having a problem with this particular one, but it is conceivable that they might. Severe irritation of the mucous membranes, this is how it starts, and then progressing on to just a general dullness, restlessness, weakness in general, and then severe vomiting. And this is what gives rise to the complex here called spewing sickness. It gets very, very severe and violent vomiting as a result of that. And so much so that they may actually inhale part of that material down into their lungs and develop inhalation pneumonia as a result of it. Treatment-wise, they usually recover pretty quickly if we shift them to another pasture, increasing the amount of forage on offer. There's really no effective treatment once they start having issues. Now, kind of to wrap this up, I want to spend just a few seconds on talking about nitrates. Nitrates are one that can accumulate in many different crops. And this is more of a general problem across a lot of different species. And particularly any kind of stress symptom can induce nitrate toxicosis or not high nitrate levels. Drought stress is the more common one that we oftentimes run into, but also when you get into periods of cool weather or frost or something like that that slows growth, we can also see these symptoms occur. Now, the risk doesn't stop whenever the rains come and things start greening back up again. It actually may increase the amount of nitrates there for short term after the rain comes and the moisture is taken up by the plant. So some plants tend to have higher nitrate levels than others. If we look at the more common plants, some of these we've already talked about today, but brown top millet, corn, cudweed, dock, horse nettle, Johnson grass, all of those have the potential for accumulating nitrates and being a real problem. But we can also have that even in our more typical or common forage crops as well. Even things like alfalfa and ryegrass can have high nitrate levels in those particular plants as well. So if we're in a period of stress, it's a wise thing to do to go ahead and test those forages on that crop to make sure that you don't have any nitrate issues there. Nitrate toxicosis in general, the toxic agent here is actually nitrite, not nitrate. But what happens is the animal takes in nitrate, and it's very quickly transformed or reduced to nitrite by the microbes that are in the rumen and the GI tract. The nitrites actually bind with hemoglobin. It creates a compound called methemoglobin. And methemoglobin actually makes it very difficult to transfer oxygen, and so the animals begin to suffocate as a result of that. The animals that can be affected by this, typically we're going to be dealing with ruminants that are going to be affected by this most commonly because of the microbes that are in the rumen to cause the issue. But we can also see issues with other livestock as well, including horses and monogastrics of other sorts. But typically we're going to be dealing with this with ruminant animals. The signs of a problem in this particular case would be two different levels. You have a subclinical level, which would include low milk production, low performance, maybe even animals that will come up open just unexpectedly, or just have general breeding issues. This is something that the animal is just struggling to provide enough oxygen to all parts of the body, and as a result it starts to have an effect on production. If we start having acute nitrate toxicity when the oxygen deprivation becomes very, very severe, the mucous membranes of the animal will become very bluish in color, very rapid and difficult breathing. Going back to this bluish color of the mucous membranes right around the whites of the eyes, that's what will really show that bluish color. Very rapid pulse, tremors and staggering and general collapse, and death will quickly follow. Within just an hour or two after consuming this material, these animals will die. So oftentimes we're going to see these animals as a post-mortem and looking at trying to figure out what happened. And a key diagnostic here is looking for chocolate-colored blood. We talked about cherry-colored blood for the prussic acid. For nitrates, we're looking at chocolate-colored blood. It's a different effect on the red blood cells there. Treatment-wise, a couple things that we could add to that. We can administer an IV solution of methylene blue at 1% weight to the volume, and the treatment may actually need to be repeated 15 or 30 minutes after the first treatment that occurs. This is one that oftentimes you're going to have to do this very quickly to be able to save the animal. It's very challenging, especially oftentimes we're dealing with multiple animals at a time that are having an issue here. So this has been the story of how curiosity can kill a cow. So I hope that it's been helpful to you. I appreciate you spending a little bit of time going through this with me.